gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith. Thank you for that. And thanks to you at home for staying with us for the next hour. Today was the day that Republicans have been waiting for. Today was the day that Republicans have been looking forward to for months now. Winning all of those congressional seats in November's elections, that wasn't supposed to be the high point. That was supposed to be a moderately high point on the way to the real high point, which was supposed to be today. Because what was today? Today was Repeal Day. Today was Repeal Obamacare Day. Woohoo! You go all the way back to August of 2009, the angry town halls against health reform. People showing up with guns at public events to show just how much they hated health reform. Corporate-funded coast-to-coast bus tours to stoke hatred of health reform. Anti-health reform bus tour speakers comparing health reform to Hitler and to Pol Pot. All of that work, all of that hard work, all setting the stage for one day, for today, all of that anti-health reform crusading finally politically paying off. You ready? I hope you're sitting down.
On this vote, the yeas are 245, the noes are 189. The bill is passed, and without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Sort of an anticlimax. The Republicans finally got their big day today, and now they're sort of ready to move on quietly. I mean, seriously, this is the headline in Roll Call newspaper today. Republicans already moving past health repeal. This thing that Republicans have been building up to for more than a year now. This thing that they've been campaigning on, they have been promising on, this thing that was supposed to be the big culmination of Republican opposition to that evil socialist Barack Obama. It came and went today, and it does not seem like Republicans are exactly relishing their big moment in the sun. The reason that Beltway Common Wisdom said repealing health reform was going to be such a big political payoff for Republicans is because Republicans had supposedly turned the country against health reform, right? Democrats who knew what was good for them would be falling all over themselves to join Republicans on their big day when they voted for repeal. Republicans did succeed in getting some Democrats to vote against health reform when it originally passed. People like Jason Altmaier and John Barrow and Ben Chandler, Tim Holden, Larry Kissel, Dennis Kucinich, Jim Matheson, Colin Peterson, Heath Shuler. All of those Democrats did vote against health reform when it passed last year. But then all of those people voted against repealing health reform when they had the chance to today. Even though Democrats could not come to a consensus that passing health reform was a good idea, they're almost in total consensus that repealing it is an awful idea. Republicans got precisely 3 Democrats to vote with them for repeal today. 3. And Democrats knew it was going to be like this heading into it. Quoting from Roll Call today, when asked Tuesday whether he was worried about mass defections during today's vote, Democratic Minority Whip Steny Hoyer answered, no. That's all he said. No, not worried. In fact, Democrats appear to be delighted that Republicans have given them this second opportunity to not only sell the virtues of health reform to the country, but to point out to the country that what the Republican Party most wants to do now that it's taken power in Washington is to vote for insurance companies to be able to kick you off your insurance even after you've paid your premiums because you had the temerity to get sick. What Republicans wanted to do first upon getting control in Congress was to vote for insurance companies to deny coverage to anybody who had a pre-existing condition, no matter how many millions of us there are. That $250 check that senior citizens on Medicare got to help them afford their prescription drugs, Republicans came to Washington and took control of the House because they want that $250 back, please, from those senior citizens. Republicans were psyched to come to Washington to repeal Obamacare. But doing so not only forced Democrats to get their act together to name all of the parts of that law that are actually really popular, it also allowed Democrats to point out that every Republican in Washington would like to take those very popular things away now. Even if Democrats had a hard time speaking up for health reform last year when they passed it, they've got no problem at all slamming what it would mean to repeal it now. Democrats have found their voice. Thank you, John Boehner.
Does this legislation create one job? Not one single job will be created by this legislation. Does this bill reduce the deficit? This bill does not reduce the deficit by 1 penny. In fact, if it became law, it would increase the deficit by $230 billion. Does it strengthen our middle class? No. This bill will not strengthen our middle class. This bill is clearly wrong for our economy and is clearly wrong for our country. We cannot go backwards. No way, no how, not now, not ever.
I would say to Americans watching at home, think which side you're on. If you are in love with insurance companies and want them to succeed and you don't care about anything else, by all means, this is your team. These are your guys.
Has anybody, any family in America, any single mother, any spouse, any child, any grandparent met a more bureaucratic system than the American health insurance system? There is no more bureaucratic system. When you send in your premium, they tell you sent it the wrong place. When you send in your bill, you sent it to the wrong person. When you send it to the right person, they say that person's left their job. Nobody wants to go back there, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody. They've been there for 50 years, and health care costs have gone up faster than any other segment in our economy, faster than anything you can imagine, faster than a speeding rocket, faster than a speeding airplane, faster than Superman. Health care costs have gone up because of the insurance bureaucracy.
Gentleman's time has expired.
This was supposed to be a great political week for the other side. For Republicans, this was billed as Repeal Obamacare Week in Washington. How'd that work out? On Monday, you might recall, we got this poll result. Not even a majority of Republicans want to repeal health reform anymore. On Tuesday, day 2 of Repeal Obamacare Week, we got this poll result. The number of people who want done what Republicans just voted to do, repealing the whole thing, that's down to 18% support. Then today, day 3 of Repeal Obamacare Week, the day that Obamacare was finally set to be repealed by Republicans, came this poll result from NBC News and the Wall Street Journal. The percentage of people who think that health reform was a good idea is at its highest level since September 2009. The percentage of people who think health reform was a bad idea is at its lowest level since June of 2009. So the positive view of health reform, way up. The negative view of health reform, way down. So now Republicans want to repeal it? Looking at the way the poll numbers are going, even though this was the Republicans' big idea, even though it was their big plan to spend their first big week making a big splash on repealing health reform, it seems like the longer Republicans get their way, the longer they get to talk about their big priority to repeal health reform, the more Republicans get what they want, the worse it gets for them and the better it gets for Democrats. Republicans, in the end, didn't even hold hearings on wanting to repeal health reform. Democrats held hearings on that. Democrats held hearings on what Republicans wanted to do, to highlight what Republicans are doing. Health reform has now been repealed in the House. The Republicans voted to repeal it. And while Republicans in Washington appear ready to move on, let's get this over with, Democrats over in the Senate appear to want to stretch this thing out for the next few days if they can. Democratic aides telling Roll Call that Democrats are looking forward to spending some time, quote, highlighting the law's small business tax cuts, free wellness visits for seniors provided under Medicare, and several other programs. How is this working out for you Republicans? You guys glad